Senator from Hawaii.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was listening to the majority whip, and I got to say, I have a little whiplash. I mean, I was here. I was negotiating. It was late July. We were passing paper back and forth between the Democratic and Republican caucus. The cloakrooms were working together, and we had a deal. And that's the way you get nominations confirmed in batches. The majority party wants to get them all done. Fair enough. It's their president. And the minority party has this really unique authority in this place, which is to slow things down. And the rhythm of this place is that the majority party goes to the minority party and says, what's it going to take for us to confirm a batch of these nominees? We got a backlog. We got to get some of these through. And so there are a couple of ways that normally happens. First of all, you pair Democrats and Republicans together so that each party is getting a little bit of what they need. The problem with pairing in the Trump era, and it's different from Trump 1.0, is that President Trump hasn't even nominated Democrats to commissions like the SEC, the FTC, the FEC, the CFPB. All of those agencies usually have Democrats and Republicans nominated, and then they kind of languish on the floor until we cut a deal and we confirm them all. We had no deal space because there were no Democrats to deal out. And, by the way, many Republicans with whom I talked said, yeah, that's a fair point. Let me go and talk to the chief of staff of the president. Let me go talk to the White House team. We should get you some Democrats so that we can do some nominations in what they call the wrap-up script, right? The second thing is on the ambassadorships, usually we are able to confirm a bunch of the career State Department officials, people who work in the Foreign Service who are not political at all. And then it's the donors and the friends of the president and the kind of like, I think the whole process, frankly, of how we decide our ambassadorships is totally bananas. But both parties do this, where donors and friends of the president are the political nominees for ambassadorships. Okay? So those are the ones that we usually require a vote on. And the civil servants, the long time, some charge d'affaires for Mozambique or whatever it is, like we're not going to fight over that, and we just confirm them. The problem is there were like fewer than 5 career State Department people nominated to these positions, and so again, not a lot of deal space. But still, we found 35 that we were willing to do in exchange for things, and we did not ask for anything that was unreasonable in the sense of something that would be objected to by large numbers of Republicans. This was NIH funding and releasing funds for, even when we did that rescissions package, now about 6 weeks ago on the foreign aid stuff, there were a couple of categories of foreign aid that everybody said they liked. And so we just said, why don't you release the previously authorized and appropriated funding, because people are literally dying around the world. And you guys say UNICEF, PEPFAR, the World Food Program, you're still for that. You didn't like the stuff happening at USAID, but there are categories of foreign aid that you are still in favor of. So we found these relatively small, discrete things that everybody in this plate, maybe 95 of us, are in favor of in exchange for 35 nominees. Great. Looks like we've got a deal. We're trending towards a deal. Donald Trump gets on the phone with the leadership of the United States Senate and says, everybody go home. Everybody go home. And so the reason we don't have all of these nominees confirmed is the lack of the ability to conduct business in the United States Senate. And there are a lot of talented legislators, but what they have done is remove their frontal lobe and just substituted Donald Trump's judgment for their own. And so they don't want to cut deals with Democrats anymore. And that goes for the big, beautiful bill. That goes for their approach to appropriations. That goes to their approach for basically everything. And so it's true that we put some sand in the gears on purpose. That is what minority parties are supposed to do. That is how the United States Senate is supposed to work. And the way you untangle that is through the hard work of negotiating across the aisle, and they just didn't want to do it. Like, I have been in many bipartisan negotiations over the last 3 or 4 months, and they have mostly all failed because in the end, we can only find a handful of people who are open to a deal. And this time we had everybody saying, okay, this looks like a reasonable solution. And then Donald Trump himself blew it up. Why? Because he doesn't want expediting the Senate's consideration. He wants to adjourn. He wants this place to adjourn. Now, why is that a big deal? Adjournment sounds like something you just kind of do to, like, okay, we'll see you tomorrow. No, adjournment for the month of August would have meant that Donald Trump himself would have been in a position to appoint whomever he wanted to any Senate-confirmed position. By the way, remove any member of the cabinet or sub-cabinet, and then appoint that person, and then that person could serve until the end of the Congress without the Senate ever weighing in. That's what he wants. And you know, it's kind of part of a piece, isn't it? He finds the Senate to be a nuisance. And I remember this. I wasn't in the federal government executive branch, but I was in the state government executive branch. And, once you're in the executive branch, you find legislators to be annoying, to be an impediment to the kind of stuff you want to do. But the architecture of the Constitution provides that we are supposed to be annoying. We are supposed to put sand in the gears, and then we're supposed to deal with each other. And so what's going to happen this week or next with this rules change is a result of 2 things. It is an abject failure of the willingness to negotiate at all, of the willingness to interact with Democrats for fear of being seen as too soft and insufficiently compliant with Donald Trump. The other thing I'd just like to say is it's a little rich. It is a little rich that we fly out at 1:45 on a Thursday, and our first vote is at 5:30 on a Monday. And I know senators work hard. I'm not trying to say it's terrible that people go home. They should go home. They should interact with their constituents. But these are 2-hour nominations. We should probably exhaust the possibility of working Fridays and Mondays before we go through with changing the rules on a partisan basis. We should probably consider, do we need a 5-week homework period in the summer, or could we do a 4-week homework period and plow through nominations? And so it is true that there is a big backlog. And it is actually true that Democrats helped to create it. What is different about this year is that there's just no effort to untangle the backlog. When we were in the majority, I would walk over to Chuck's nomination staffer, figure out what was stuck, and walk over to the other side and try to make a deal every week to try to get some of these confirmations. And as I had a blanket hold on State Department nominees, not a single person approached me once. Once, Jim Risch talked to me. That's fair. But they just, I don't know if it's a muscle memory thing or if it's a Donald Trump thing, but they have simply forgotten how to work with Democrats. I yield the floor.